Greetings, church. Hey, I've come across something that I'd like to share with you guys for a little while, and I won't be long. But I was reading the other day, and actually I was reading and I was listening to some music on the YouTube. I have some Christian music that plays, and this song came across, and it's about as the deer panteth, and so my heart pants for thee, and I was listening to it, and it's mainly it's instrumental. There's no words. I don't know the words to the song. I just know what it's talking about. And well, the song, it's real pretty. The melody's great and all that, and the piano playing is really good, and so, and be that as it may, I got to thinking about the song. So I turned to Psalm 42, and I read it, and I contemplated on it for a little while. And this has been going on for probably a couple of weeks now. And it's kind of the way these videos work on me, is I get something, and then I cogitate on it for a while, and I think about it, and then I think about it, and I think about it some more, and then finally it's time for me to step up and do a video, and I won't keep you long, but it struck me, and so here we go. Psalm 42, verse number 1 says, "As the hart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. My soul thirsteth for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? My tears have been my meat day and night, while they continually say unto me, Where is thy God? When I remember these things, I pour out my soul in me, for I had gone with the multitude. I went with them to the house of God, with the voice of joy and praise, with the multitude that kept holy day. Why art thou cast down, O my soul, and why art thou disquieted in me? Hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him, for the help of his countenance. O my God, my soul is cast down within me, therefore will I remember thee from the land of Jordan, from the Hermonites, from the hill of Mizar. Deep calleth unto deep at the noise of thy waterspouts. All thy waves and thy billows are gone over me." I won't read the rest of the psalm, but I want to turn to Psalm 63. And Psalm 63 and verse 1 says, "O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty land where no water is, to see thy power in thy glory, so as I have seen thee in thy sanctuary. Because of thy loving kindness is better than life, my lips shall praise thee. Thus will I bless thee while I live. I lift up my hands in thy name. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise thee with joyful lips." With the presence of God. To us, to the church, to Christians, it's the ultimate, not the penultimate, which is the next to the top, but it is the ultimate thing, is to be in the presence of God. My desire, and I'm sure it's the desire of those listening to this, is to be in the presence of God. Life comes our way with many things, and sometimes distractions get a hold of us. And in fact, there was something that happened right before I started this video, and all of a sudden my flesh didn't know if I was really ready to do this, or if I should be doing this, or what happened kind of upset me, and I was sitting here, and I waited for a little while before I finally pulled the trigger and turned the video on, because what was bothering me was getting in the way of me getting into the presence of God. And sometimes life happens, and things happen, and there's things that overwhelm our flesh and they overwhelm our spirit, and just remember back, Daniel prayed 3 weeks before the answer came, and in that 3 weeks he didn't stop praying. In the midst of our turmoil, we shouldn't stop worshiping God. We shouldn't stop desiring to be in the presence of God. They that dwell in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Well, we can't be under the shadow of the Almighty unless we're near to God, unless His presence is right there with us. And it's the desire of my heart, and it's the desire of my heart when we go to church, that God's glory, His train fills the temple. It's my desire that God's presence overwhelms us. Now, I've been to church, and we've all been to church, and you know, I've been to church sometimes, and you know, people hooting and hollering and running and dancing, and I don't know if there was something wrong with me or what. I didn't feel what they were feeling. And there's been times I've run the aisle and hooped and hollered and nobody else did anything, and apparently they weren't feeling what I was feeling. And then there's been times I've been to church and the whole place blew up. Everybody was feeling something, which hopefully was the Spirit of God. I know what it feels like to be in the presence of God, and I know what it feels like when God has reached down and gotten my attention and has His arms around me, and He's giving me strength, and He's comforting me, and He's encouraging me, and He's healing my spirit, and He may be even healing my mind and my soul, and He's physical healing, or you know, maybe sick or whatever, but I know what it feels like to be in the presence of God, and there's nothing like that. There's not a problem out there that's so great that God's presence can't at least give us a way to see clear of the problem, or maybe even He'll fix the problem right there in our presence. I just can't imagine. I think one of the horrors of hell itself is to be where God's presence isn't going to be. To not even have the chance to ever be in God's presence. In these Psalms that I just read, in Psalm 42, apparently David was going through some turmoil. He was disturbed, but David knew that if he could get into the presence of God, the problem may not have completely gone away, but if he's in the presence of God, he's got his hope. See, if we had hope in this life only, we would be, of all people, most miserable. But we know, as the church and as the saints of God, we know that if we can get into the presence of God, therein lies our hope. Our hope lies within God, in God. And His presence is like, it's like stuff doesn't matter. The things that go on around us, the turmoil of the world, the chaos of the world doesn't seem to affect us when we're in the presence of God. It's such a powerful force that it overshadows the things that go on around us. Our little church that we go to, we have 7 or 8, 10 people, sometimes 15, depending on how many young people come. I'm talking about teenagers and stuff. And even with that few, we don't have musicians, but even with that few of people, when we're singing and when we're worshiping God, you can feel the presence of God. Yeah, the music's important. I think music's important. I think skillful musicians really help things, but you can get into the presence of God all by yourself. The one thing I desire, and I can feel God's presence in this video, in this room right here, in this little office of mine, while I'm doing this video, because I need him to help me do this so I don't sound like some kind of goofball, but I need the presence of God when I do these, because first of all, I want to fulfill his will and do what he's asking me to do with these videos. Secondly, I want to feel his presence, and I want to be a conduit, and I need to be in his presence so I can understand what he's wanting me to say, if that makes any sense. I didn't even write any notes down on this because I want God to help me illuminate these scriptures a little bit about the presence of God. David knew that in the midst of his turmoil, if he could just get in the presence of God, he even said there in Psalm 63, he says, hey, I remember being in the temple, and I remember the things that were going on in the temple, and I remember, God, I remember what it was like when your spirit rushed into that place. And he apparently in Psalm 63, he wasn't in the temple, because he said, as it was in the temple, is basically as I was in the temple. He said his spirit was in the house of God. Well, I've been driving down the road and worshiping God and praying and speaking in tongues, and I felt the presence of God in my pickup. I mean, and we've all got testimonies like that where we get into the presence of God, and the world just seems to kind of fade away. The bills aren't quite as high. The need for money isn't quite as great. The person that you have a problem with at work isn't quite as obnoxious. And if you had a bad spirit while you were driving, before you got in the presence of God, your bad spirit kind of disappears. Not kind of, it does. And whatever's bothering you doesn't seem to bother you near as much when you're in the presence of God. He makes things feel good. He makes your situation palatable. He makes it where, hey, I've said in videos that I've done before that I back in December, hey, it was a year ago, about this time I got the news that I had cancer, and that's pretty devastating. But I'm still here. The cancer's gone. Thank God I know who God is, and I asked God to deliver me from this, and I had to go through some surgery, and I've had some checkups and stuff, and everything seems to be going okay. Not seems to be, it is going okay. But you know what? If something happened and it wasn't going okay again, God's still God. And I still need to get into the presence of God, because he can help me through whatever I'm going through. He can help you, whatever you're going through. The presence of God can give you strength. It can give you hope. It can give you the strength that you need. He said, I've overcome. We need that overcoming presence of God in a lot of things that we go through in this life. We need the presence of God to help us overcome turmoil, strife, sorrow. We had some friends recently that had a death in the family. We've known these people back when we lived in New Mexico, I guess since like 1990. The husband has passed away. I'm not going to give their name out or anything, but the the husband passed away back. I think my wife and I were pastoring in Las Cruces, New Mexico at the time, and he passed away, and he and I were good friends for years and years and years, and we used to play basketball together, and I mean, he was a great guy. His family was great people. They are. And one of the daughters has passed away, and I know that the family right now is what the brother and the other sister and the mom are in great sorrow. But the presence of God can help carry them through this. The presence of God can give them strength to get through the loss. And the presence of God is, man, it's our life. The presence of God is everything to me. When I was talking about our little church, we I'm not trying to bounce around, but let me get back on our little church. We do feel the presence of God. And sometimes on Wednesday night we have prayer. Sometimes we have Bible study, but most of the time there's 4 or 5 of us, and we have prayer meetings. And let me tell you what, we have some powerful prayer meetings on Wednesday night, and I love the way that feels. Man, I love praying and knowing that God's sitting right there, listening to every word that I say. And I, sometimes you're praying in tongues and God is speaking through your spirit to help you out in things you don't even know about. Man, the presence of God is something that David said, hey, as a thirsty deer panteth after the water brooks, I'm panting after you, Lord. He says, there's nothing else matters but being in your presence. Church, there's nothing else that really matters to us other than being in the presence of God. Yes, church matters. We go to church, we prioritize. All those things matter. But what really matters is getting into the presence of God. You want to have a satisfying church service? Invite the presence of God into the service. He said, whether 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I'll be there. But sometimes we have to invite ourselves in there too. Okay, God, I want to participate. I want to feel your presence. That should be our heart's desire, is to feel the presence of God. You can't go very long without water. 3 days? I think 3 days. Can we go 3 days without feeling the presence of God? No, I'm not trying to be anybody's pastor. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. But sometimes the distractions of this life can rob us of the opportunity to feel the presence of God. He said in Psalm 63, early will I seek thee. It sounds like every day in David's life, he started out the day seeking the presence of God to be with him for that day. I know I've been going to the gym lately. I needed to lose some weight and just get some exercise so I, feel my young self. But as I'm driving to the gym, I don't turn anything on. I don't listen to the radio very much anyway, but I sing or I worship or I thank God. I thank Him for just being there and being there for me, and for helping me, and helping me. It's 15 miles to the gym from my house, and maybe that's a little farther than that, but it's okay, 17 miles, whatever it is. He helps me get there, and he helps me get back home again, and I thank him for that. And man, I felt his presence this morning. I was going to the gym, and I was just thanking him for things, and I felt the presence of the Lord in my truck this morning. And I'm gonna knock it off now, and I'm gonna go, and I just want you to think about it. Think about, man, I remember, when's the last time you were in the presence of God and you just kind of were overwhelmed by it, and life just wasn't really as bad as it seemed like it was before you got into the presence of God. Yeah, there's crazy stuff going on. There's probably crazier stuff going to happen. But the Bible says, where sin abounds, grace doth that much more abound. His presence may even be stronger the more we go through stuff, or whatever we have to go through in this end time. But let me just say, there's nothing like the presence of God. There's no feeling. There's no national anthem. There's no football team winning a game. There's no golf shot. There's no meal. There's nothing that feels as good as being in the presence of God. I hope this helps. God's as close. Yeah, he's as close as the mention of his name. And I know it's his desire. It's his desire for us to feel his presence. God bless.